Hi there, folks. So, this is an experiment. So when everything fails, you'll know why. David and
They won't know why.
They won't know why. They'll say, what are these guys, idiots and fools? They'll definitely say that.
Well, I hope they read the title.
One hopes they understand what they're in for. Well, in any event, we're going to launch this effort at a video production and see what the people like it, and whether we can possibly sound any worse when there's a picture than we do when there isn't. So, there you go. What's not on your mind these days?
Wow. That's not on my mind.
Well, I would say that you left that pregnant gap. That
it gave birth to something.
It did, but what it gave birth to is disastrous in a certain sense, because what occurred to me sitting here as I asked that question is, we live in murderous times. Terrible things are happening, externally for sure. And there's a question, I think, in ourselves and possibly in every viewer and listener who participates in this experiment. We wonder, how do we absorb the terror of the outside world and the things that are going on into the tissue of our being and our work? How does that affect us? Where are we in relationship to that? And I think I've heard other people speak of this over the last few days, and it's in the air. So what do you think?
I can't help but react to all this news now. But as I react, I remember how I reacted when the Army killed, the National Guard killed the students in
Kent State. I was thinking of that too.
And I also think that the time, we've never been different. That this is what happens when we reach a certain level of insanity and hysteria and greed, and that we're so devoid, and in general, there's so devoid of contact to something that informs us of what's valuable. That we're left only to protect what we feel is ours. And the more you have, the more you think you should have.
From a material point of view.
Yeah.
That's conceivable, but it's oddly, that's not where my center of gravity's been the last few days. I have a feeling reaction, and I'm not going to call it an emotional one. I have one of those too, but I have a feeling reaction of sorrow within. But I haven't thought much about protecting my money or my house or my things. I've thought about how my sensation remains with me through these times, and it is the first place I go. I called it the gatekeeper to being a few days ago, but I'm also seeing that in a certain sense it is the gatekeeper to sanity, because when I'm in a relationship, I understand that I'm serving something much larger than these murderous times. I'm engaged in a planetary activity that is calling me to be here as a witness, even if what I'm witnessing is terrible. And it's calling me to try to not lose contact with love within being, to try and remember that love is more real than the murders are, in a way. And I'm not trying to whitewash them. I'm as angry as everyone else is, but my deep question here is how do I work? How do I work in the midst of an external catastrophe? It's a big question for all of us, I think.
It demands a certain kind of payment, of giving up certain illusions.
Mm.
Recognizing that we're not what I thought we were, as human beings that fundamentally have a compass in them, a moral compass, and that can be lost, and in now I have friends and relatives who tell me, it's because of capitalism that we're skewed, because the valuation of capitalism is based upon greed in a way. But I don't know whether that's true. But I do know that, and having working toward having a grounding of sensation, that in itself is balancing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to go outside of it, to get hysterical, to have a large reaction to what's taking place, takes me away.
Mm-hmm.
And I go away, but after a while, there's, we've maybe through our work begin to recognize that there is a coming and going, and that because of that rhythm, we go out, but then we return almost automatically, and just out of habit, and we set that up. I don't know how that works, but I feel I return to myself more deeply when I come back than I've had in the past.
Mm-hmm. Well, we develop some gravity, and the gravity attracts work itself to us, not our work, not what we own of it, but there's a force that we call work. And I think that it's Madame called it an influence, something that flows into being, but there's a force that flows into being that has a wish for goodness and attention. I don't think that they're different. So that we can be here, and it gains strength with age, perhaps, but
it doesn't get us away from recognizing the incredible sadness and the incredible sadness of what's taking place.
Well, I was, as is usually the case, I was reading Eckhart this morning. I'm on Sermon 3, and I've been doing it in fragments during the course of the week, so that the amount that I look at in any one morning is limited, to a few paragraphs. And he was talking, he's in Sermon 3, he has an imaginary questioner, because that's one of his devices in some sermons. And the questioner is like, well, if we're supposed to be empty, then while we're waiting for God to come, shouldn't we be doing something? He says, if we're just empty, that's not enough. There has to be something happening. We have to, and the questioner was making religious suggestions, logically enough, but they could just as easily be questions about ordinary life. He was saying, shouldn't we pray? Shouldn't we help people? Shouldn't we do something ourselves rather than just sitting here, And Eckhart proposed that the reason we work to be empty is so that what arrives will know what to do, which is a rather bold and unusual assertion, because he's suggesting that if we place ourselves under a higher authority, we will then take action, and it will be right action, is the inference, So the question is, can we open ourselves enough to a higher influence to become agencies for the good here on this planet? I think that in essence, given that he brings that up, the good, so often, that this is what he's trying to say to us, is, does the work, in fact, have something directly to do with this effort to bring the good into being, and then hopefully have it affect the events in the outer world? I have a lot of people asking this question of me now, and I don't actually know, I mean, I don't know. I think it's true from my experience, but if I get comfortable with the idea that it's true, I won't question enough, I think.
Well, is there pudding involved?
If there's pudding, I'm in.
Because the results are in the pudding.
Yes.
Are people doing something? And what is it that they're doing?
Yeah, indeed.
For years, I felt that, I don't have to do anything in the outer world because I'm on my cushion,
Yeah.
transforming energy that will emanate out and transform the world.
Inshallah.
Yeah. And in fact, we've had conversations about this, how one's being or one's interactions with people have a large effect in how we recognize each other, and it. I think it has an impact on the community, and we see that in the work, but we can see it in other places. Is that enough? I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking tomorrow there's a rally on Route 59, and I'm tempted to go. I don't particularly care for that particular kind of rally because it's people just waving signs and shouting. But is that what is really called for? I think the way I've been active recently has more been in regard to working to ensure people are safer. And an organization that provides food and shelter and information to people who might need to be protected from ICE or something.
Yeah.
And it's not violent, and it's done with care.
Well, it occurs to me that this came up earlier, about an hour before you came, an article I'd written. It was a letter that was printed in the New York Times in 1993, where I was talking about what computers were going to do to society. And one of the journalists who's out there in the world read that. Here we are, 2026, and came back to me and said, "Wow, this was great. What do you think of things now?" And I said, we're letting machines take over everything, and we are creatures that need emotional support. When we don't get it, we become terrified and angry and fearful and violent. And the danger of all the technology we're deploying, and they're accelerating that by many orders of magnitude more than they were in 1993 right now with AI, that we are going to suffer from this as creatures that need emotional contact from when we're babies. This is important. So, it could be that all of this violence and rage and anger is just a magnification of what's taking place with the lack of real feeling in life. And it occurs to me, I'm drop kicking this one, that the work is really, in a way, designed to help us remember how to be human beings who feel and care about life. that this is an essential quality of it. And if we could just inject that substance, a little, personal hypodermics back under the skin of our lives, in the smallest of deeds, forgiving a person who we're angry at, for example, that would eventually collectively have an influence. It's not the same as thinking that we're going to be Samson and lift the columns of the temple or what have you and be Superman and fix the politics. I don't know if that can be done, but I know from experience that I can, if I'm attentive and I sense I can have a more human and more feeling relationship with other people. So is that a path? And is it legitimate? I don't know if it's enough, but I'm not a weightlifter. I'm old. We're old. What are we going to do? We're not going to get AK-47s and go fight the government or something.
You hire somebody else to lift the weights.
Yeah, right.
Provide employment.
We can get them on the web for sure.
But you ask this you ask your question as if it's not something known. To me, oftentimes at the end of work periods, I've heard, whereas leaving work period, remark about how we're a little bit more normal in terms of being a human being.
Yeah.
And balanced, a shared feeling together. So I think that definitely, the first stage of the work, it maybe only take 5 or 6 lifetimes, is to become more human. And maybe then it's only possible to have an understanding of the sense and aim of our existence and what right action could be.
I'm glad you brought that phrase up, because the sense and the aim is what we're losing in the midst of confusion, and I'm not sure we can afford to lose the sense and aim of our existence.
We've lost it.
Well,
it's been lost.
I would say that
we're trying to find it again.
I think that's true of society in general. I think that many of those in the work, especially the older people, have a thread that goes deep enough into the maze for us to have some contact with that idea now, though we do feel that there's a sense and aim to being, and that it has its own internal justification. So I'm not sure we're quite lost, but I'm not sure we found what we're searching for either. I remember Betty Brown once said, the drop of water between two streams, she said, in suspension. And we are in suspension here, moving between the world of disaster and the world of glory. I say that in the sense that the world outside us seems to be disastrous, and the inner world brings glory to everything. There's no explanation for that, but it is apparently, that condition is part of what it means to be human. Maybe it's not reparable. I'm wondering if we've ever really looked straight in the eye of this question and said, maybe that can't be fixed. Is it possible that it's impossible?
Well, according to Hopi history, civilization has been completely wiped out 4 times, and some say that each one had technology and built up, and then had to be wiped off the face of the earth in order to begin again. So, I don't know. It's hard to imagine that kind of change, given where we are, and the amount of active war that's taking place around the globe, and murderous responses by rebel forces to government and vice versa.
I've been working on the Gilgamesh story of the flood with Utnapishtim. He was the man who built the ark. And it's got many features that are substantially different than the biblical account with Noah. Notably, that the ark in Gilgamesh was built to save all of civilization, not just Noah's family, because he brought the craftsmen on board that knew all of the essential crafts. So it's a different tale in a certain sense. I mean, he did bring all the beasts and the seed and but he brought the craftsmen, which I thought was interesting. And the other thing is that the gods are very random about this. They're not destroying the world to punish man for his sins in the Gilgamesh epic, the way that God is in the Bible. I think they're doing it because it's fun. There's a Trumpish kind of flavor to Gilgamesh because the gods just get together one day on the banks of this river and they're like, hey, wouldn't it be great to kill all these guys? And that's pretty much exactly the way it happens. And one god isn't even willing to tell Utnapishtim directly, but he says to the wall next to him, this is really going to come down bad. You got to build an ark. And I guess that Utnapishtim hears the echo. But the idea there is that Gilgamesh had a vision of social catastrophe that's similar to our own. And it seemed to imply that it wasn't a punishment, that it was random insanity in a way, that there was no rational reason for it. I mean, it didn't invoke astrology or anything. It just said the gods got together, maybe they're planets, I don't know, and we're going to screw these guys, we're going to kill them all. And then Utnapishtim is forced to lie to all the people that he lives with in order to get them to help him build the ark. And he does this knowing that they're all going to die. He doesn't tell them. He's sworn to secrecy. So
I thought they were all going to get on the boat.
Well, no, a lot of them are. The important ones, he has to decide who to throw under the boat. They go under the boat, the other guys. But it's a strange tale because the tale is far more complicated in a way than the tale of Noah. And it echoes, it's 4,000 years old at a minimum, but it echoes down to present day events. And so when you talk about the Hopi myth, I think to myself, well, they're not the only ones who say it's happened before. And it has happened before. Gurdjieff talks about the way that they took all the priests in Egypt and put them on a rope and threw them in the Nile for the crocodiles to eat them.
Right. Well, I think the Hopis were going back even further.
Could be.
Yeah.
But it's a perennial tale. It's not annual. We all think that it's our story, but it's everybody's story. I think that's true. And yet we also know for certain that all through these various epochs, civilization, that human beings have gathered together in small groups to work, as Noah and Utnapishtim did, to preserve the good. I mean, the beasts and the seed and the craftsmen all represent the good of life. They symbolize the preservation of goodness in the midst of a great storm that is terrifying and destroys everything. So maybe, is it a cop-out? I don't know, but maybe it's worthwhile considering the idea that we may be lifelines the size of an actual, candy lifesaver. That's how big our lifesavers are. But we can do that much. We can preserve the good, and pass it forward into time. If that's the case, it means
I've heard people are building arcs underground.
Yeah. Oh, that's a kind of a magical concept.
Yeah.
The underground ark. It's strange you bring that up. This is a random association period here on the show, but today I was taking the stuffed animals on the bed, which are the things our dogs like to play with, and I noticed that one of them's a hedgehog and the other one's a mole. And I thought to myself, well, here are my reactions. I can either crawl underground or wrap myself into a defensive ball, but that's kind of where we seem to feel we are outwardly right now.
I got stuck on calling this a show. Before there was video, it was a conversation.
It was still a show then. It was just a radio show.
Yeah. I see.
Now it's worse. Well, so I think that I would say, and we don't have to wrap this up, but we don't want to go on forever. But I think we're doing something, but as usual, I think we don't know what we're doing.
Who's the we here?
Everyone,
Oh.
the people. Well, I'm saying folks in the work. I think that our effort is real. I know that it is real, and I know that it's sacred, and I firmly feel in the bones of my astral body that it's having an influence. But I don't know enough about that to say much more than that.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't stop us.
No, it doesn't.
We can say more.
We can sit. We
Because
can.
we're idiots and fools.
That's right, and we're gonna stay that way no matter what. That's our commitment to our listeners and our viewers. So, in the midst of a completely unresolved nothingness, which is where we belong. Thanks for coming, David.
You're welcome. See you next week.
Until next time.
Yes.